All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the things I like to do, maybe once every month or two, is ask people who listen to the show and who follow me on social media for recommendations of which local artists, past and present, they want to hear on the show. And I get a lot of recommendations, and I try to follow up on as many of them as I can. And but every time I put out a call like that, there's certain people who get recommended, once, twice, three times, four times. And the guest on this show is someone who's been recommended by kind of a wide range of people. People who have who play very different types of music or interested in different types of things, and your name seems to keep coming up. And I mean, I think that we'll get you to introduce yourself in a minute, but I've definitely seen your records at local record stores dating back to the mid 90s. And for the longest time, I had never actually heard it. I have a copy of, I guess it's your first record now, but before we get into that, I think maybe the best way to start is if you do want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is that you do.
I'm Eve Rice. I made the band Vav Jungle. That's with a V. Some people think it's with a B if they just sort of hear it, but
right.
Yeah. So it actually initially started it with Murray Taze. He's a local artist, and when he was finishing university, he didn't have enough time, so I went to it in the 90s with Grace Martini as the interpretive go-go dancer. But it's electronic music with a lot of different influences, I guess. So
cool. Okay, yeah. I mean, I have the Zigadig CD, and is that your first record? That one came out in the mid 90s?
Yeah. We had cassettes. There are cassettes floating around. So before that, but that was the first CD. Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one I remember for years seeing it in the local section, because even back then I spent way too much time looking at local music in stores or where I could find it, and I never knew what it was. I was like, is this a lounge record? Like, based on the album cover, what kind of a thing is this? So what I guess, what is the origin of the project as far as making electronic music? Like, because that's a fairly early date. Nowadays it's not unusual to hear someone has an electronic project, but
yeah,
you go back a few decades, it becomes a little less common. So how did you get into that in the first place?
When I was younger, I played the organ. People are obsessed by organs. In the late 70s, 80s. I'm really dating myself, but it's all cool. So I was obsessed by sounds. I think I was slightly, I don't know, maybe a little autism with me. I don't know. I just love sounds. And my father had the latest of the most amazing hi-fi systems. So I would sit with headphones on my head and listen to sounds on records.
Okay.
My father was obsessed by Klaus Wunderlich, who was a big German organist in kind of kitsch. It was always bottom of the when you shop for it, it would be like, oh yeah, that album. But I love organ sounds. I love beatboxes. I'm obsessed by organs, like Lowry's, Baldwin's, Yamaha's, Farfisa. I like all of it. And so when I was 5 years old, I could play. I started playing like Beethoven. My parents thought I might be gifted. They'd always say I was gifted, but it wasn't really my thing, but I like it. I still think it's cool. But I was obsessed by noises, and my dad brought an organ home. He thought organs were going to change the world. He was obsessed by digital sounds, and he loved that it was from Japan. He says, the Japanese make really great electronics, great instruments. And I didn't know what my dad was talking about because I was really young, but I loved the sounds. And as I got older, my best friend used to come over, and she's like, you don't want to open this thing up. I said, no, it has screws on it. And we would unscrew the organ, and I'd start changing the sounds in the circuit board, because I figured out that it was circuits, but I was really young doing it, and I could have been electrocuted, but I knew don't go near the bottom of the organ, because that's all where the main circuitry was. There's something scary about it. But at the top, I would take foil. So I didn't know to take a wire. This is how circuits are made. I took electronics as well when I got older. So, but I would change sounds. And my father said, don't change the sounds on the organ. But my father never played he's not musical. He could tap on the steering wheel to Dire Straits mostly. So, but so I was changing noises and having fun with it. And actually, I really I wanted to do something. I thought, it might be cool to perform when I'm older. So maybe this is a way to make sounds happen. So do something to the keyboard that no one else does, but you're basically, circuit bending. That's it. So, but yeah, so I thought, how do you record something circuit bent? I had to think about that as well. Like, how do I transfer that to a tape recorder? So it was always these little, how do I learn how to do that? So anyways, yeah.
I like how it goes from, playing Beethoven and potentially being a gifted child musician to then just going right into the guts of it and figuring out how to tweak it and make it sound cool.
Oh yeah. Like, I have this obsession with, maybe that's just being, we're all have our thing. We're all our little worlds. So, that was my little world. And I wasn't afraid to break a stereotype, like a girl stereotype, being obsessed by that, especially at the time, because it was awkward. Like, I was like, I was referred, she's an artist, it's like, it was a really bad thing.
Right. But, it's a pejorative artist rather than just, a good thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I never heard music other than what my father had collected when I was younger. So, until I got, a little older and I saw David Bowie. I saw David Bowie when I think I'd just turned 13.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, actually, I didn't know Ziggy Stardust was David Bowie. I had no clue, because you're so young, you just don't know. And I wasn't really a collector. I just liked sounds. I knew what I liked. But when I saw him, I went, wow, like, this is different. I guess this is what different is to the world. Like, figuring that out. And I knew about Blondie, of course, like, I knew about them. I didn't know about the B-52s yet, which I was really obsessed by. But I really, I don't know why I was so obsessed by making a different sound, but that was just me. I just felt I like to take little things and create things out of them. I don't care if was bought for 5 cents. I don't care if it was bought for $4,500. It just didn't matter. I knew I could do something with it. So yeah.
Well, I like how that's kind of the DIY punk aesthetic, despite not necessarily being punk sonically, right? I mean, it's that idea of just making something with what you have or what you have access to, and coming up with something new and different with it.
Absolutely, and it's awkward, like, all I had was a tape recorder when I was 12, 13, I made a lot of plays with my best friend. She's a banker now, and we had crazy record cassettes of us making like plays, and we took photos of each other. We were, trying to be models, and then, I got really bad acne and braces. I didn't want to model anymore because I was going to be a teenager. So it was like always performative. It was always extremely funny to us.
Yeah.
So it was a way to fill your time, because I grew up in St. James in Winnipeg, and I didn't know anybody really like her, and it just seemed like I don't relate to anybody. That's how I felt at the time. So, but I was also really guarded. I was trying to guard what I was doing. I felt that was a safe way to go, I guess, at the time, but I was so young. So,
Well, and coming from somewhere doing something so different too. I mean, what was it like, sort of, when you realized that there was more kind of out there in Winnipeg as far as what the music community was, and there were people doing not the same thing as you, but things that were a little more out there, a little more experimental, and like, did you feel like you kind of found people that you could relate to who were doing other musical things that were maybe more adventurous or more unusual?
Well, I had met the Chillis sisters, who, I worked at a place. It was called Famous People Players, which I think they still exist.
Okay.
It's Black Light Theater, and it was very popular. So I got a little job. I was 14, so I was working there, and I'd met Helen, who was doing accounting, but we were the same age. But she was a brainiac. Her parents allowed her to do all the accounting, which was absolutely unbelievable, with this company. So, because they were part of it. So I talked to her, and she had black hair, and, it's like, wow, she's like really different. It sort of seems like someone I might know or something. And then I told her, and we became friends. I was really awkward, you know, like I was putting makeup in my ears, like colors. Like she said, "You're cool." Like, you know, my sister wants to model too, or something. I don't know. And then she said, and I said, "Come to my like house." She says, "You make like you have a keyboard, da 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 da." And she came over. She says, "Oh my God, my sister could sing, and you could play the keyboard." She goes, "This is amazing." Like she really liked it.
Yeah.
So we made an electronic band called Just Ducky. And that was my first thing. It's on that album, Don't Worry About a Thing, Mister. It came out in, I think it was 86, 85,
Okay.
84. Anyways, there I have copy, well, one copy. Ken Gregory has all the rest of them. But yeah, until we did that, we realized like they were collecting music more than me even. So I said, "Oh, I really like this." And then I had heard of Nina Hagen. I started to see things slowly on television because Winnipeg was a kind of difficult, like there wasn't, you know, where do you listen to anything? Everything was hip and cool. It was in America and it was in Britain. I don't know. And I loved music from all over the world. Like if I heard certain beats, I loved bossa nova music. I love all that. So so we started doing our thing, and I met her sister Georgia, who was like almost like very low octave her voice, and I went, "This is kind of cool." We made up songs, and I remember making my first song, which was called the Duck Song. I don't know. We just talked about. We thought it was English, and they're Greek, and Georgia would sing in an English accent. We thought that was important. So we made an album. I don't know if you you're younger than me, but there was a place called the Fat Angel.
Okay. Yeah.
It was on Main Street, and actually Ted loved Just Ducky. Like there was no band like us, I guess, you know, around. There really wasn't, and he really wanted to record us. So there's a cassette called The Pond, and it's around, and it's like we're on speed. Like every single song. He recorded us on a 4-track Tascam.
Yeah.
And actually it's pretty wild, like for what we did. It was like fun. Like let's make songs about our dreams and just ridiculous, crazy stuff. And so that was the earliest. So we ended up opening for Severed Heads and Skinny Puppy.
Oh wow,
yeah. And that was at the Franco-Manitoban Center. We did the first Rock Against Racism in Winnipeg, I think. There were ones earlier. Maybe there were ones earlier, I think. But that was a big deal for us. That was a big fail, though. The lights came on. There were no LEDs, so the lights came on, and I couldn't see the red readout on the keyboard. So everything was out of sync. So I just put the drum machine on, and people were like, and I think John Kendall was working at CKUW at the time, and he did an article, and he put Just Ducky, Just Yucky, because we were like, we were just standing there looking cool, but you know, I was, you know, crying because it wasn't just right. So that was really, really funny to us, and but we were happening like we thought we were happening. There was only so much we could do in Winnipeg, and then we were going to move to Toronto. And then I didn't go. I actually just had it. I just felt it was a lot. And I didn't get to say goodbye to my dog. I had a little Pekingese and my family. There's family disruption, you know.
Right.
You know, so it was kind of that. But again, as time progressed, I listened mostly to CBC. And what else did I listen to? There's a point when I even, you know, was listening to CFRW or KY58, and I would request bands. I wanted to hear what I was listening to. I thought, well, this is really cool shit. Like all the music I listen to is great because you're in your own world.
Of course, yeah.
Listening to this stuff, and I remember phoning in. Actually, I believe it was CFRW, and I'd always say B-52s, or I'd say Devo, or I'd say the Go-Go's, and it was like always. And I remember phoning one day because also there were contests, like you kind of try to win something or whatever, right? That's what people used to do, and that still happens. And they said, we don't play that weird music anymore. And I hung up on it. And then I didn't hear this music on really any stations anymore. It became Madonna, who I did not like in the beginning, because I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's not all electronic, like, or that's not purist or whatever I thought. I love Madonna now because I think she worked her ass off. It's a very intense, being in the music scene is intense. You're being, looked at, head to toe, and, being a woman, like that's how it was then. And it was intense, like there was intensity to it. And it was, we really want to push what we were doing. But again, I needed to establish myself before I could go to Toronto. And I ended up not going there to do Just Ducky. So that's kind of what happened in those early years anyways. So
well, I always find that kind of era of Winnipeg music fascinating, because I didn't start going to shows, like you said, I'm a bit younger, until about 95 or so. So there's all these bands that I've heard of, and that whole kind of scene that predates me, that is always so interesting to hear about, because like a lot of it isn't documented in the way things are now, right? You get bands that came out last year and they've taped every practice, and there's Instagram and all this shit everywhere, and everything is like completely documented down to the second. But there's so much stuff that just got lost because people didn't have access to video cameras or the ability to tape a show, or they ran out of film in their camera or whatever. And yeah, there's so much cool stuff that is, unfortunately, because of technology, just unless you have a tape, or unless you found someone gave you a copy that was sitting in a basement for the past 20 years, like it's just gone, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, some people, like, Ted Afanasiak, who had Fat Angel, has a lot of stuff on beta. He even has much music, total beautiful library of stuff.
Oh, wow.
He's a real archivist, not like me. Like, I archive things, I put them in a box and put them away, but it was just very clean. So there are nuggets. I was part of Daniel Barrow's Winnipeg Babysitter, which was about Videon, like, local access television, which is kind of Shaw, but Shaw is kind of the local version of that anyways.
Yeah, the DVD came out a few years back, right?
Yeah, and I'm on that. And then there's another, now it's going to be on Blu-ray, because it went to Paris. It did very well. Like in general, I was like, wow, like that's really good, Daniel. And now Daniel and Damien Ferland, they're going to be doing a thing about me now. So I was like, that sounds cool. Like, that'd be great. Like, that'd be fun. And so that there's archives of video on then, and SCTV, I'm sure. Videon had a lot of, it's a lot of, like, I think people traveling would get ideas from local access television, because there was, in Toronto, Vancouver, wherever. Yeah. But it really had a Winnipeg feel to it, some of it, especially Molly Earl. If you ever saw Molly Earl, the older lady who's an artist, has on SCTV, called her, and she called it Crazy Crafts. And it reminded me of it. The identical show in Winnipeg, this older lady, she's making little art and stuff, and it was really, really funny, because she was so sweet, and she's making a wishing well, and it's just I don't know, there's something so endearing about the first stuff that now I feel sometimes people might laugh at. But the funny thing is, styles come out of the weirdest things, musically or visually.
Sure.
And so I always think, you might be surprised by that, but people sort of like that, like they like the past, or they learn from it. And because it wasn't filmed, it has a cheapness to it, because it's unfortunate videos used to look cheap. Now you can make it look like 30 millimeter, right? So it's incredible. But there is stuff, and that Winnipeg Babysitter is actually a really good example of what was going on. Like Guy Madden's, it's all of us who kind of were around, but we were on it. So Guy Madden's on it. Everybody kind of was on Videon or VPW. They called it VPW, Channel 13, which is really awesome, actually. But people who were on it and what they were doing, what they were up to. So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
That is cool. Well, and just to jump ahead a bit, I mean, like I could honestly talk about
Yeah.
this stuff
Yeah.
all day because I'm super interested
Yeah.
in it because it predates me. But like you've been doing this now as Vav Jungle for quite a while, right? I mean, have you
Yeah.
stopped kind of? Has it been consistent, sort of between when you started doing this on your own to now? Have you been consistently putting out records and making music, or have there been sort of on and off times?
The most recent album came out in 2020,
Okay.
so I put on digital media, and that's Cover Up, because it has kind of a, again, a COVID theme, I suppose, like it's what's going on. Probably the most serious album I made, if it's serious, I don't know. It's like, and it's all made on an organ that was left out in the rain, technically, because I want to do a completely, just an organ, like from this,
Yeah.
and it's from 1985. But yeah, I put out an album. My first album was 97, and then it was 2000, 2002, 2005, and then 2007, and then Cover Up. And then I became DJBeekeeni halfway through this. So
Right.
there's a
Yeah, I was going to
DJ
ask. So what is the difference? I mean, what separates the two personas, I guess?
My friend Leela owned a gallery in downtown Winnipeg called Cream Gallery, and we met through Warren Carther, who's a kind of a known artist throughout the world, actually, and he lives here. And we went for dinner, and I got very fit around that time, and I would help her because I was working at kind of a top salon in the Exchange, because I do hair like part-time. I've always worked part-time because I'm a full-time artist.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was working there, and I thought, I was building clientele. So I said, you want me to come in here and like work? She goes, oh, come in here. I'd love it. I'll pay. Like, I was like, yeah, okay. Because it's groovy. And I brought Serge Gainsbourg. I'd bring all these mixes. She says, where the hell do you get all this music? It's really good and people like it. So I'd bring CDs. And then she said, you should be DJBeekeeni and you should wear a girdle and you should just play songs here. Like, we'll have a night we do it. And then I met kind of more of the art scene than I knew before in the city. So that was how DJBeekeeni developed. And then I had to make one DJBeekeeni album, just to do it. But basically DJBeekeeni is me playing other music, plus I will transition into one of my songs and sing it.
Okay.
And in 2010, I was the first female to play at Folk Fest. Like, that was pretty cool, but I didn't know if anybody would like. I was so like, I don't know what to think. I'd never been to Folk Fest. So, but yeah, I'm kind of proud of the fact that I did that. And I was kind of looming. I would just stand there. I'd sometimes go dance if I had a good light, and like something like that. Like I danced in front of Harry Dean Stanton. I'd go dance in front of Harry Dean Stanton. But it was like it's not like I don't do super suggestive. I just do 60s. I'm totally into 60s. So anyways, I've had some fun with DJBeekeeni for sure. And I did the remix for Fred Schneider from the B-52s. And that was for his act, The Superions, because he has this other band. So yeah, I've had some really fun things that have happened through that. So as well.
Have you always kind of wanted to, I mean, like just what you were saying a few minutes earlier about, the organ that was out in the rain and wanting to, has that kind of idea of wanting to kind of make new and interesting sounds out of things that already exist, has that always been with you? I mean, it sounds like the circuit bending was that, take something apart and seeing what you can do to it to kind of tweak it and make it sound different than it's supposed to. And I mean, a lot of these things that you've done kind of have that vibe to them. Has that always been something you've been interested in?
I think so. You usually go back to some sort of history in your brain pan somewhere in there. But I know when I did Pap Rock in 2007, that was me. I went, wow, like I know how to record properly now. And the earlier albums have a little, like they're lo-fi because I made a few mistakes, but actually I don't care at this point.
That's part of the charm, right? That's part of that's part of the charm of those, is having those old albums where you did do it lo-fi. It's kind of a part of the appeal, right?
Totally. And Pap Rock in particular, I wanted it to sound big. Like I've always wanted things to sound big, but I would perform here and I would tour a bit. And we never got good sound except at 7th Street entry. So, like, I always felt people we're gonna make you sound like a lounge act, and it was like very hippie, and it's all groovy, but in the end I go, I can't hear the drum machine, like what's going on? Like there was always issues. So I was like, how come Bjork sounds so good and she's using a couple things, it sounds great, then I taught myself. My friend who made models for Jelly, which is my 2000 release, Steve Falk, he did a great job of that album. He didn't master it though. We didn't master it for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, like when I did Pap Rock, it was all my stuff. It was all my MIDI instruments plus my really expensive synth. So I was picking and choosing. I used an Yamaha RS7000, which was really recent at the time. Really cool machine with really modern beats mixed with almost an analog sound. And I went, this actually sounds cool. So I was obsessed by making sounds for it. And that album got on the charts, like the college charts. And, I went to Festival d'Ité and Off Festival in Quebec, and it went #1. Like I was like, it was really fun, but I didn't know how far to take it because I've never had a manager. So, but I'm really proud of that one just because it's like, boom, like that's really cool. So it's fun.
Do you sort of foresee yourself continuing this kind of indefinitely? Like, is this something you hope to be doing 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, just continuing to make records and record things? And
I think so. I mean, you can make anything on anything. I mean, I've got so many different ways of recording now. Yeah, I think absolutely. And DJing a bit too. Because it's part of art. Like I'm a painter as well now. So I've been painting for 7 years. I'm with a gallery. I do private shows. That's kind of getting, I'm getting some moderate interest with it. So it's been cool. Yeah, I can't really get my head out of being an artist because I don't take it to, I'm an artist and, I'm doing fine. Everything's great. It's something, if I didn't have it, I don't really know how it would exist. I really don't. I don't know why I'm so close to it. I have no clue. I love producing things. I'm a conceptual artist. I am a conceptual musician. So if something appeals to me, I love it. But if I've had a lot of people I've worked with too over the years, something little satellite bands. And sometimes I'm so used to doing a stage thing or doing something that it can freak other people out. So I know I can be a bit obsessive, but I'm always like, go be positive, have fun with it, and don't get too worried. I've had, sometimes you have gigs where things don't go awry, and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever, I made something. Like I like, that's the most fantastic thing. So, and I wanted to go, I'm pretty aloof. I don't talk about, even when I went to university, I don't talk about it. Like a lot of people, because I do hair and I only do hair I work off hours and I only do people I know unless I have a good referral, but they're just friends 3 days a week. And I have some people that don't know anything about the rest of my life. They're like, oh, so you don't have a lot of hours, and they're kind of obsessed by me. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get into it with them because it's so much explaining to do. And then they might look at, I just stick to hair or whatever, but I have great, nice clients in hair as well. And I have nice people I've met over the years. And but staying in Winnipeg has always been, it's a little tough to be here, but it's a very open city and a very open city to music and art. And I think we're becoming a competitive city. And I think music can be competitive, can be competitive, especially now. It's still very competitive.
Sure.
But depends where you're looking. I mean, what did I used to do? I used to, a bulletin board says needs theme music. Oh, I could do that. And then how did you get that job? Well, I saw on a piece of paper on a wall. You can't really do that anymore.
No, you can't.
So, because everyone's going to take that job. So But things come up still. So that's why I still love it, you know? So, and yeah, and yes, other things always kind of bubbling up here and there. And again, I had a, you know, fair amount of success with CBC over
Yeah.
the years with David Wisdom. For 10 years, he played my stuff off and on. I had a super session. I did a national television show. My stuff was in a Hollywood movie or in Dawson's Creek. It's like,
Wow.
it's always these things, but you just don't think about it because it's just, you're working. And I worked a lot, like I played a lot. And I'm still going to play again. I haven't played physically live. I did it on Facebook, you know, 2 years ago, the height of COVID, but it didn't look great. It was like, but it was fun. But I am going to play live again, regardless. So it'll be happening again. So, you know, because I think it's important and it's fun. I need to have fun. Everyone
Awesome.
needs to have fun.
Definitely.